Welcome everyone. Please use the Q&A box if you have any specific questions. The chat can get a bit overwhelming and information can get lost. So if you would like us to get back to it, please go into the Q&A and pose your questions there. And if we do not answer, we will have someone from our commercial or marketing team who can get in touch with you and explain to you anything else that you might need. But to start it off today, welcome. With a round of introductions so you know that you're talking to today. So my name is Susanna. It is very, very nice to see so many of you today. And I hope that we're going to have a very good 55 minutes ahead of us. I am a senior ESG facilitator at Nexio projects. Among other things, I guide our clients through their sustainability reporting journey, which includes reviewing their existing reports, writing future ones, or introducing to them new frameworks, as I'll be doing today. I also help companies implement new policies, procedures, and help them on their overall sustainability strategy. I have a background in policy development and human rights, and I've been working in consultancy for over 5 years now. So super nice to meet everyone, and welcome again. Cesar?
Thank you, Susie. My name is Cesar Carreño. I am originally from Ecuador. I have lived for around 12 years in Germany. I have a background as an agricultural engineer. I lead the climate team of Nexio, where we support different organizations in their climate journey, particularly in measuring their greenhouse gas emissions, setting their targets, science-based or not, auditing their inventories, supporting them with LCA, supporting with data quality systems, etc., etc. And we look forward to complement our services along with our colleagues from the ESG team, because we make a great tandem together. So we look forward that this webinar is of very good use for all of you.
Thank you. Then we might as well just jump into it, right, Cesar? To start off, so for those who don't know Nexio projects, we are an international consultancy firm and we help organizations to reach their sustainability goals. So our main job is really to guide and support companies on their sustainability journey, from compliance to purpose, how we like to put it. And we do this through a variety of services. Some of them you see on your screens. This includes ESG ratings and certifications, including EcoVadis, B Corp, ISO standards. We also help with ESG reporting, including specific support with GRI, UNGC reporting, both of which we're going to be covering today. And on the climate side, we provide services around carbon footprint, climate risk assessments. We assist with CDP, science-based targets, carbon neutrality. We also provide gap analysis. And in terms of a bit more of a bigger picture, we also focus on tailored strategy development, which includes helping clients with their materiality assessments, supplier engagements, ESG gap analysis. There's a whole range of sustainability support that we can provide. So just a little background in case you have not joined us in our previous seminars and would also like to join in the future. So to start with, last week, as I mentioned before, we hosted our first webinar of this reporting series, where we looked at the importance of materiality analysis. And in the second webinar today, we will dive much more into the most widely used reporting frameworks and standards, both for general ESG and climate. So firstly, we're going to start with explaining what sustainability reporting is, why it is important, why it can be beneficial. We will then provide more information about key reporting frameworks. As I already mentioned, we will be covering GRI, UNGC, and Cesar will take over on CDP and TCFD. And I really hope that at the end, we can shed some more light on the benefits of each one of these and hopefully help you in deciding when choosing the right framework for you. So to start off, we would like to do a quick poll for our participants today. We would very much like to know if your organization has already published an annual sustainability report in the past. You should be seeing a poll right in front of you, so you can choose one of the options. Yes, we've published several. Yes, we published one. We will publish our first. No, will be planned to, or no, it's not planned yet. We'll give it a minute until everyone can put in their answers. Oh, great, that has already stabilized. That's great to see. Most people are saying that they've published already several, around 45% of the participants today. That is really great to see. 25% are planning to. That is great. Nice. So almost half of you have already published several. So hopefully a lot of the information that we will be discussing today is not new, but hopefully we can provide a little bit more detailed about the frameworks that potentially you're looking at using in the future. So especially for the ones who are planning to do it, to do their first ones, I hope that this is going to be useful and fruitful. And here are the results as well. I think you should be seeing them. Cesar can confirm. Thank you. Yes, so without further ado, then I think I will give it to Cesar, who will walk us through some of the most basics of sustainability reporting and also talk a little bit more about what really sustainability reporting is. So Cesar, the word is yours.
Thank you so much, Susie. And of course, we are entering this phase, this part of the presentation where we are setting the scene. We would like to explain what are the main drivers and what are the main benefits of reporting sustainability goals. No? First, we will start with what is a sustainability report and how it impacts and it can be used internally and externally. So sustainability report, or CSR, it's a periodical but usually annual report. Some companies do it biannually. That depends on the size of the company and the main goals of the company, which is a document which channels the intentions of different companies and organizations in regards to their climate ambition, social ambitions, etc., etc. Now, all of them link directly to the main operation of the organization. It has different, let's say, phases which can be used and utilized by different users, internal and external. This includes stakeholders such as those which are part of the value chain, academia, national governments, local governments, researchers, independent researchers, etc. No? And of course, it can enhance the efficiency of the resources through the internal processes of the organizations. For instance, we have internal tools that can be used. You can develop KPIs for the internal report, which is communicated to internal stakeholders, maybe shareholders, the management, etc. As an external tool, you can use it for annual communication and progress, include sustainability criteria internally. And internally, you can communicate strategies and allocate tasks and make tasks better understandable for different groups within the organization. Externally, other stakeholders will use this, for example, for decision-making, particularly for your customers, and also for your suppliers to understand what do you require throughout the upcoming year or period as part of the value chain of your organization. Of course, we have a lot of benefits that come out of this particular exercise, and these have positive, let's say, outcomes. For example, you can keep an overview on what specifically to focus during the process to ensure compliance with different regulations, become more attractive to customers, attract talent, attract more investors, etc. No? Secure loyalty long-term, so forth and so on. No? So it's very important to establish this not as a good practice. It's our intention for this to be a common practice. So hence the ground of this webinar. Next slide, please, Susie. And numbers are increasing. As we can see here, 87% of sustainability report reference the GRI standards in 2019. So there are, later on, we will deep dive into the different standards. No? 95% of reports reviewed by the World Business Council for Sustainability in 2019 acknowledge the SDGs in some way, in one way or the other. Over 50,000 companies will be required to report sustainability information according to the mandatory EU sustainability reporting standards to conduct a materiality analysis. We have a webinar about this too. You can check it, I think, and you will share the link. 77% of these sustainability reports claim to be in accordance at core or comprehensive level in comparison to 55% in 2015. 50% plus of reporting companies are applying third-party assurance to their sustainability reports as of 2020. And over 10,000 companies, over 100 countries are reporting according to GRI standards. So this showcases that this is an increasing and ongoing movement, which tends to grow on a yearly basis, not only due to peer pressure or as well by the customers, but because this serves purposes of enhancing efficient processes internally, efficient communication, and moreover, inspiring different stakeholders in this process. No? Next slide, please, Susie. Here we can see a chronology of reporting standards. We can see, for example, GRI, which has been set in 1997. A lot of people don't know this, but yeah, GRI exists since a lot of time ago. And they planted the seed internally. Then, of course, came the UN Global Compact in the year 2000. And of course, based on this type of reporting principles, other were created. For example, CDP, which provided reporting principles, but moreover provided a platform to host the data. Then CTSB, then afterwards came EcoVadis, PRI, RI in 2011. Then we have the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, which has been set in 2012. And of course, other different standards that are coming more and more and adding more detail to the process of reporting. For example, the Task Force on Climate related financial disclosure adds a lot of financial indicators that could serve as a main indicator to responsibly invest or divest resources toward greener areas. And of course, all of them heavily aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. We understand, of course, that this is an ongoing exercise, an ongoing practice. Some of them differ a little bit, one to the other, all of them with a common goal. And there are common thematics that cross-cut across all of them and demonstrate some harmonization at some level. Some of them are a little bit more demanding than the others, but all of them have the same goal: to make disclosure and transparency of the climate and sustainability goals more accessible to several stakeholders in the public. Next slide, please, Susie. I would say, yeah. For this key question, which standards or frameworks would you like to know more about? You will see a poll now, and please feel free to provide answers. We will be very happy to see you afterwards.
Thank you, Cesar. I hope that everyone can see the poll. I can see the numbers coming in. Hopefully our estimations were right, and we'll cover these today, right? If not, we might just have to host another webinar, Cesar. Yeah, I see TCFD, CSRD, SDGs. The numbers are still rising. I'll still give it a few moments until everyone can get their answers in. GRI, low number of CDP. Give it a couple more seconds so people can put their last bits in. I think we should have everyone now. Yeah, so TCFD, 36% of our viewers. Great, that's good. We'll be covering that. CSRD, which is the European directive. So that's more a set of regulations that companies have to adhere to based on national laws. We do provide some information on it in one of our previous webinars. Unfortunately, we will not be covering this today, but we can definitely consider it for our next one. UNGC, we will be covering that. CDP is a bit low. Maybe Cesar will show some interest in that when he starts talking about it. GRI, SBTI. Great. Okay, there is general excitement about these. That's good to see, right, Cesar? Which one did you think would be high?
Well, I would have thought that CP would be higher. That's surprising.
You can change people's minds today.
But I'm happy to see that net zero and science-based targets are increasing. I'm very happy about that.
That is very good to see. Yeah, as we mentioned today, as I mentioned earlier, we will be covering mainly the SDGs, UNGC, GRI, CDP, and TCFD. But if you're looking to learn more about another framework, then we will have another webinar on the 17th of February where we can incorporate more information about this, also seeing where the interest lies. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts.
Yep. I'm giving back the voice to you, Susie.
Thank you. So before we dive into the separate frameworks, I would just like to take a few moments and really highlight why reporting is important and why it is beneficial for you, especially for those who are still looking to publish your first sustainability report. Starting with a short quote from the Secretary General of the UN. The people of the world do not want half measures or empty promises. They are demanding transformative change that is fair and sustainable. Together, let us kickstart a decade of delivery and action for people and planet. Very nice quote. I think hopefully we can all agree with this. And this is really why important reporting on your sustainability efforts is so important. It really shows how an organization mitigates risks and how it maximizes positive impact on the people and the planet, as you can see highlighted in front of you. And importantly, it also acts as a sort of a proof of your company's continuing involvement and your efforts to deliver on the promises that you have really set for yourselves. So it's just a great communication tool to really show that people and planet are at the heart of your strategy, at the heart of your business, and that we are moving away from the business as usual and towards respecting the planet and people around us. So really, why the purpose of reporting? While companies can have very different reasons for doing this, there are three key purposes and sort of benefits as well for you and your company to do so. So the first one would be the ESG compliance. Proper sustainability reporting really allows your organizations to meet future compliance and reporting regulations. And why I say future is because, of course, you should already be complying to what is set at the moment. However, most of these frameworks we're going to be covering today really do show the best practice. And by aligning with them and by considering what you're putting into your reporting and trying to do it to the best of your ability, you're closing the gap between the future regulations which you might face. So even if your company is currently not required to report on sustainability, the global trend really is moving there. We can already see this in Europe where the regulations are getting more and more stricter, and you will likely have to do it in the future, even if you're a small company at the moment. So starting early and ensuring that your organization is used to it, is used to reporting, is used to setting the time aside, setting the resources, will just make the transition towards compliance much easier for yourselves in the future. Secondly, it enhances business value. So really in a nutshell, reporting improves the effectiveness of your monitoring system on a sustainability performance. It builds these long-term analysis and allows you to compare results from one year to another. And this will actually in turn allow you to see where you are performing well, or if there's any areas of improvements that need your attention. So it can really guide your strategy and your future targets going forward. And it also promotes internal operational efficiency and accountability. So think of it as a tool that allows not only for transparency to the outside public, but also for yourselves to see where you're at and where you would like to be, and then bridge that gap for yourselves. As I mentioned, the third one is really enhanced transparency to external stakeholders. And this surely comes with a lot of benefits. I hope that those of you who have already done your sustainability reports in the past, that this is something you have noticed. So it's really through this reporting, you can gain trust and improve your relationship with your key stakeholders. You can gain new relationships by people seeing that you are putting sustainability and you are communicating your efforts publicly. On the second point, it really enhances your company's reputation. This is actually particularly interesting with the newer generations, so Gen Z, who are increasingly becoming much more interested in the sustainability efforts of companies. And they really want to see how a company performs and what they're doing. And this does drive their consumer behavior. And there's there's a number of statistics that show that this is something that is, as a trend, is growing much more every single year. And then lastly, and but not least, it can help you gain access to capital through governance transparency. One good example is that even investors they have to follow their own sustainability guidelines, and your organization will likely benefit from disclosing on sustainable performance, as you can attract these people who and the companies who are really looking for that transparency, even for their own purposes. So once again, I would like to ask you to participate in a small poll and tell us what you find the most challenging about sustainability reporting. So particularly for the ones who are looking at it at the moment, and maybe there's some glitches that you don't know how to get through. So you should see a poll in front of you. So you can check, is it identifying maybe the right reporting frameworks and standards? Is it maybe the topics and identifying your material topics, verifying the content? Is it perhaps writing the report itself, which can be quite time consuming and challenging, perhaps gathering the data, or is it publishing and communicating the report externally? Interesting to see what people get. I see that gathering data is growing and identifying the right reporting framework. Well, Cesar, at least it's good to know that we have good viewers here. You're in the right webinar.
Yes, indeed.
Give it a few moments. Still see that some people are putting in their answers. Couple more seconds. Okay, I think everyone should have it in now. Yeah, so gathering data and identifying the right framework. I think we can help with both of those. Definitely.
Yeah,
great, thank you very much. Good news, this will be much worse if it was down to like 10%, the first question. Thank you very much, everyone, for sharing your thoughts. Great, so we can then move on. So actually, from what you just described, it is something that we see with other companies. It's often things we do see with other clients. So the two most common answers, data and really choosing the right framework. It is absolutely crucial to be confident and comfortable with how you're going to report it, and knowing that you do have the data to back that up. So fear not, you're not alone in that. It is definitely something that other companies struggle with as well. And we have found that the 6 challenges that you see in front of you are the most common, let's call them pitfalls, that organizations face. So the first one is information overload. As you mentioned, it can be very hard to find your way among all the frameworks and all the standards. And it's very hard to then understand what to report, how to report, who to report to, when to report. And that's why it's very important to already have an idea of, okay, this is exactly what I would like to disclose. These are the sort of people I'd like to communicate it to, and it can really help you narrow it down on choosing which sort of framework to go with. The second common issue is transparency. So sustainability reporting really should be used to communicate what the company has achieved, but also what you have accomplished. What we often see is that companies struggle with finding the right balance between praising themselves and between disclosing too many information about their internal strategies, or struggling to see if they're putting too many negative things in there. So it really is, it is a bit of a game of a balance, and it is important not to only put the good stuff in there, but really to put everything, to paint a picture, if you will, for your stakeholders. So as concisely as possible, to make sure that they know where you stand, where you're making progress, and where you're heading towards. Another common issue is internal misalignment. This is really with regards to the lack of engagement within the company itself when creating a sustainability report. And this is why it's very important to make sure that you have a timeline, you set yourself targets, you align with the teams that need to be involved in sustainability drafting. Often these processes can take a few months, And by the end, you might find out that you needed input from a team who was not involved at the beginning. So really setting the process at the beginning is crucial, and it's going to make the whole journey much more easier. And you will be able to align on expectations on the final deliverable and make sure that everyone who needs to be involved throughout the process know exactly what to do and when. It may sound a bit moot, but a lot of companies don't actually realize that this is something you should set at the beginning. Another one is lack of data, as was also shown through the poll. So companies do struggle to make their impact measurable, which makes it then very hard to deliver a data-driven report. And I would like to emphasize the word data-driven, because sustainability reports, even though they are about your sustainability efforts, really should have a basis in data. You should be able to showcase your measures and the measurable outcomes. This is why, again, as I mentioned, it's important to plan. You should know ahead of time what you're planning on reporting on, so that you can set your internal processes, you can set your KPIs, the way you measure any of your data, you can set that in a way that when it comes to writing the report, you have everything that you need, hopefully in one place. And it's at that point, hopefully just inputting the information into the report. There can often be a mismatch of the message. The best sustainability reports really have a strong and clear message that resonates with the key audience that the company has envisioned that they will provide the report to. Unfortunately, common pitfall is that there's reports that are just way too complex. There's too much information in them. They're way too text heavy. They do not focus on the right stuff. So as you're going through your report and you're writing it throughout the year, really do think if the message resonates, is the information clear? Am I talking to in a tone that the key audience will understand and will really get the best possible information out of the report? Lastly, but not least, lack of resources. As I mentioned earlier, it can be very time consuming to write the report and going through the whole process. And you do need enough resources. You need enough people. You need to be aligned with other teams. Reporting is not only about sitting down and writing the report, it's really everything that comes before that, the whole process, which includes stakeholder engagement, materiality analysis, collecting the data, writing, getting approval from your management team or your C-suite, and of course, publishing and promoting it. All of this can take months, and it is very important that you set aside the resources, you set aside a budget, you set aside a specific team who can focus on this throughout the year. Just a quick note, we will actually be creating a guide in the next few weeks on how to mitigate many of these. So watch out for that on our website. Our marketing team will likely be sharing that as well. But in the meantime, I hand over to Cesar, who will get us started in the first key framework. I think that's SDGs. So over to you, Cesar.
Thank you so much, Susie, and thank you for that amazing clarification and explanation from your end. Well, moving towards the key frameworks, let's start with the SDGs. Can you move to the next slide, please? Thank you very much. These are the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, which, of course, were born at the United Nations, particularly during a Sustainable Development Conference that took place in Rio de Janeiro in 2012. But of course, they started to evolve and adding more detail towards the next couple of years until by 2015, all United Nations member states adopt the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Important to highlight, the Sustainable Development Goals replace the what were called the Millennium Development Goals. And the big difference between both of them is that Millennium Development Goals tackle more poverty rather than climate issues or other pressing issues that affected the whole society. So that's the big difference between the Millennium Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals deal with more, let's say, issues or problems that affect everybody around the world. So they have a more common approach in this regard. So these are 17 goals to achieve before 2030. So time is ticking. To foster sustainable development, protect, restore the environment, and to promote a fairer society in both developed and developing world. And of course, inside these Sustainable Development Goals, we have 169 targets to go on. Next slide, please, Ceci. So what are the trends in the SDG reporting? 69% of the world's largest 5,200 organizations cite the SDGs in their sustainable reporting in 2020 versus 39% in 2017. So this is a very impressive increase. So it's taking more and more the stage, the Sustainable Development Goals. 90% of the world's largest 250 companies only report positive impacts towards meeting the Sustainable Development Goals. 49% do not disclose SDG-related performance goals and targets, but they deal with them aside, particularly mostly internal, but it should take place as a central piece for the sustainability strategy. 41% identify more than 9 sustainable development goals. But of course, the influence of the private sector is rather limited because, for example, there is so much a company can do to, for example, have a sustainable city, for instance. But yes, they have a role, but it needs to be properly identified at some point. SDG 8, which deals with decent work and economic growth, SDG 13, climate action, SDG 12, responsible consumption and production are the most prioritized, particularly by the private sector, and SDG 14, life below water, and SDG 15, life on land, are least prioritized by companies. Of course, it is important for the organization to try to develop KPIs to try to assess what is their main impact on these different fronts. No? Of course, it is important to highlight that at this point for the Sustainable Development Goal, any company can decide what to contribute. You can use qualitative or quantitative data to demonstrate what is your engagement with the SDGs, can be self-assessed. You can choose which specific SDGs you want to focus on or the deep dive, etc., etc. No? And it is included in other reporting standards such as GRI. Here is a very quick trend. As you can see, there is progress in some of the Sustainable Development Goals, but not particularly in the most important ones, because we are an organization that works with sustainable plan development strategy for the corporate level. We see climate action as one of the most pressing SDGs. As you can see, it's very high on the agenda, very urgent, but not been taken into account as much as it should be. Progress is not certainly pacing up. And it's important for us to highlight that most of this issue is because the organizations don't have the proper knowledge to how to implement this type of climate actions and to share transparently what are their main goals. That's what we are here for. We look forward to assist you further, but it's important for you to understand that the SDGs have a big role in your sustainability strategy. Next slide, please. The do's and don'ts, of course, best practice, define what are your relevant SDGs, which ones are you targeting, which ones are more affected by your organization, report the business case for SDG action, integrate SDGs into your organization processes, link SDGs to SMART targets, make SDG setting and measurement consistent and comparable, and to avoid, of course, this is very important, make the SDG selection exercise obscure. Do you need to enhance transparency and public disclosure? Mention the SDGs without setting specific goals, report the SDGs without leadership commitment, provide an unbalanced positive only view on the SDGs, and of course, focus and prioritize on all SDGs, because then you might be spreading too thin. Yeah. So with this, I would like to give the next slides to Susie. She will let us know how to report on the SDGs.
Thank you, Cesar, and thank you for providing a nice overview. Before I jump into this, I would just like to quickly say that I see some of you are raising your hands. And if you do have a specific question, then please remember to use the Q&A chat box, and you can put your answer in there, your question in there, and then we can get back to it at the end. Great, so how to report on the SDGs? I think this is quite straightforward. So as Cesar mentioned, it's important for you to identify which SDGs resonate with your company and which are important and material to you. Just 4 things to remember. SDGs have targets specifically under them. Every single one has, some have 2, some have 5, some have 7. And by defining SDGs, you should be able to also look at the targets that resonates with your company, and you can then take that target, set it as a relevant KPI, set it as a relevant goal. This will really allow you to turn your SDGs into actionable frameworks. and then be able for you to implement them and embed them into your sustainable practices and your decision making, so that in turn will allow you to properly report and communicate on them. If you have any specific questions on how to do this, then please let us know in the chat, and we will be happy to provide you with some more information on that. SDGs are really good, as Cesar mentioned, as they really resonate with other reporting frameworks, including GRI, which will be the first one of the frameworks that I'd like to shed some more light on. I think from the poll, a lot of you are already familiar with it, but I would like to just provide you some quick overview. So GRI is really the most widely used standard for disclosing your sustainability impacts. It's apparently in 2019, 87% of all sustainability reports did reference GRI standards. And I think mostly these are used by large companies. However, they do have a wide range of companies and organizations that do use them, including governments, small SMEs, NGOs, and different industry groups. So very wide use. The idea behind GRI is really that organizations report on the material topics that they have identified through stakeholder engagement, through analyzing their industry, and they follow a set of guidelines and requirements set by the GRI. I'll dive into that in a moment. GRI is completed once a year and does generally take a few months to complete. Best practice is you finish your report and you start preparing for your next year one. So do consider that if you would like to follow the GRI standards. So GRI standards are based on 3 different groups of standards: the universal, sector, and topic. The universal standards, without going into too much detail, apply to every single organization who chooses to report in accordance with GRI. They have to follow certain rules. Some of these things are as simple as you need to provide information and background about your company, but it also includes a little bit more of a process. So for example, can you describe the process of your materiality analysis and stakeholder engagement? Then there's the sector standards, which are really the standards that only apply to your given sector. GRI is still working on some of these, as not all of them are out. If I'm correct, then oil and gas is out at the moment, but the other ones are being worked on until next year. And then we move to the topic standards, which allow companies to report specific information on their material topics that they have identified through their materiality analysis. This is a new setup. For some of you, this might look a little bit different than what you're used to. So this is the new standards that is being rolled out throughout 2021. Companies can still use the older standards this year, and there will be a soft rollout from next year onwards that will be based on the universal, sector, and topic standards. Some benefits about this is really regarded as it's a high standard of reporting. It is used by a wide range of organizations. It's very consistent and comparable from different sectors, different countries, different locations. And very importantly, it's data driven, it's very measurable. And it also has a standardized and clear, concise methodology, which makes it much easier for you to report and knowing what you have to report on. So it's a very good guidance if you don't really know and tapping a little bit in the dark where you should start. The second one I'd like to discuss is the UNGC, or the United Nations Global Compact. So this is really, rather than a framework, it's more of a standard, and it's a call to action for companies to integrate and align with the 10 guiding principles of the UNGC. And the principles address 4 key themes: human rights, labor, environment, and compliance. I think around 12,000 companies currently align with these principles. The benefits of UNGC is really that it's self-assessment, so it's something that you can do yourself. It's very flexible how you choose to report and what you choose to include in there. It has a wide variety of reputational benefits, as it is a voluntary initiative. So really signing up to this is something that shows your commitment to the principles, and that it's something you have at your core. And of course, it is widely acknowledged. It is part of the UN, and it is also aligned with GRI. It is also annual, and it Compared to GRI, it only takes a few weeks to complete. So real quickly, as I mentioned, you have the 4 sections: human rights, labor standards, environment, anti-corruption. If you would like to know a little bit more details about this or want some more information, then please let us know in the Q&A. But what I would like to just showcase is that what companies have to do is really just report on their measures towards these principles and disclose any targets and measurable outcomes. This can be done in a fairly freestyle way. It is not as rigid as a GRI report would be. And I would also just like to note that UNGC is currently reworking their communication on progress towards the principles. And it is something that they'll be working on in the next year. And of course, once we have more information, we will be communicating this within our network. So keep your eyes out for that. And with that, I leave it to Cesar to tell us a little bit about CDP.
Thank you, Susie. I will go pretty quick through the CDP slides because we need to stick to the time as well. But yeah, CDP. What is CDP? CDP runs the Global Disclosure System. It's a reporting platform which hosts and consolidates information from several sources, particularly from the private sector, but also includes national and local governments in this regard. And of course, allows opportunity for third parties to evaluate the climate ambition and climate action, because normally CDP does this on behalf or at the request of several investors, purchasers, and of course several related stakeholders. So they have an online survey that collects, assess, and reports on environmental performance, focus on 3 specific topics: climate change, forest, and water security. And of course, it works very closely with different organizations around the world. Next slide, please. So the growth of disclosure have been exponential. We have seen here that from 2003 until 2021, it has grown a little bit above 12 to 13,000 organizations combined in general, including companies which are disclosing on forest, companies disclosing on water, companies disclosing on climate change, and the total of disclosing companies. It is important for us to highlight that it's important to share the information as clear as possible in order to avoid confusion, because the database can be used by investors, by researchers, etc. And of course, CDP works in close collaboration with them. So please remember, CDP is one hosting facility that facilitates the disclosure of climate-related information in different organizations. Next slide, please. Now, moving to the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure. Again, this was created in 2015 by the Financial Stability Board, which of course developed climate-related financial risks. So this includes the financial aspects in order to facilitate the decision-making for, let's say, investors and different stakeholders. Includes disclosure that can be used by companies, banks, investors, anybody who wishes to participate in this particular process, taking into account financial and environmental climate aspect as well. Enables companies to monitor and reduce the financial risk of climate change to enhance preparedness. You need to report governance, strategy, risk management, metrics, and targets, but who particularly aim at the financial sector organizations. So normally what it does is that increase the amount of reliable information on financial institutions, showcasing their stability, their strength, their preparedness, their transparency, etc., and contribute that several stakeholders have a better understanding of which type of risks are included in the transition process for a much more sustainable organization. Next slide, please. And of course, the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures have top core recommendations in this specific front. You need to report on governance, strategy, risk management, metrics, and targets. All of them have different levels of complexity and, of course, different levels of importance, but combined, they are a very strong tool. You need to report about organizations' governance, about climate-related risks and opportunities. If there is a task force that deals with this, the strategy, how do you plan to enhance your adaptation and risk mitigation related risks, Risk management, how do you plan to do this? Do you have, I don't know, any available budget allocated to this? And of course, metrics and targets. How do you measure your impact? How do you measure your efficiency? How do you measure your engagement? Next slide, please. Finally, the key takeaways. As we can see, we have all of these different principles and recommendations, guidance on reporting. We have the SDGs, the UN Global Compact, GRI, CDP, and TCFD. You can see that why do they need to, or why do they want you to report? Of course, some of them provide wider environmental and social governance objectives, while others are more focused on climate, environment, and natural capital. Who particularly, well, all companies around the world across sectors in a specific group, other organizations or principles tackle larger companies and public sector bodies, for instance, local governments. And of course, others focus only on a specific sector or the private sector, particularly those related to financial activities. What particularly? Guiding principles for a sustainable global economy as a very general overview. In CDP related to the CDP environmental score and rating, and for the TCFD, the climate risk and sustainability assessment. Align, yes, some of them align and even overlap in certain principles, but there, as of now, there are several strategies that are looking towards having a united front, because if people keep on reinventing and adding different criteria, the list of standards will become infinite at some point and much more difficult to assess. But the idea is to find those which are strong, which are more widely used, which are more transparent, and of course that have been proven to serve as a specific tool to enhance transparency towards climate change strategies or goals or plans. So yeah, this is the last slide from my end. I would like to give the floor to Susie for the next poll.
Thank you. And I just quickly wanted to highlight that as Cesar is discussing here, that really a lot of the challenges that you might have can very easily, not very easily, but it can be, it's useful to use a framework like this, because then a lot of the times you are able to really face the challenges and be able to answer some of those questions. The frameworks are designed for people who are reporting for the first time. They are designed to ensure that you are complying with standards, that you are complying with regulations. And they do have they have a wide range of guidelines they provide to you. I think all of the ones that we discussed today have a lot of external information. There's whole communities that you can go to and find additional information as you are going through your reporting process. So feel free to browse their websites. And of course, if you need help, then there's also, you can always turn to us. But there really is a lot of information out there. So do not fear going out there and reporting, because it can be very rewarding, as you have seen today. Thank you, Cesar, for the very good summary. So last poll of today, what we'd really like to know is, what kind of services are you looking for in terms of your sustainability reporting? So if you can once more, please turn to the polls and let us know what it is you're looking for. Is it writing the report? Is it reviewing your report? Is it helping with materiality assessments, or perhaps helping with communicating in once you have written it? Or it is still what we were discussing at the beginning, really choosing and reporting in accordance to the standard that you would like. The numbers are moving. Couple more seconds. See, reporting according to standard at the moment looks like that's something that is, they can be quite complex. We completely understand that. Materiality assessment as well. I'll give it a couple more seconds until the numbers stabilize a little bit. Any last minute responses in the poll? Okay. Yeah, so reporting according to a standard, very understandable. A lot of these are fairly complex. I get it. And also materiality assessment. I do recommend going to the first series of our webinar that we had last week, which focused more on the materiality analysis. Hopefully that will provide you some clarity writing the report. Yeah, I don't know if you, Cesar, have any words on this?
Well, yes, I would say it's a quite logical outcome. It's very difficult to assess which standard to use. If you need to use one, more than one, how you combine them. Are they additional to the work that you are already doing? Do you need more effort? So it's a rather complex scenario, but we are there to assist you.
Exactly. And on that note, yeah, we have 6 minutes, so I think we can turn into our Q&A. I see that a lot of people have put some stuff in there. So maybe, Cesar, we can just pick a few. Actually, I do see a first one that's about carbon accounting, so I might leave that to you. I will just read it out for everyone. Will there be a separate webinar for carbon accounting? Cesar, are you looking forward to that?
Of course, that's my area of specialty. Looking forward to prepare a carbon accounting webinar at corporate level.
No, there's one on TCFD, the participant is asking, do you recommend any specific frameworks which can help us monetize the risks and or impacts?
Yeah, what particularly the TCFD assess how your organization deals with the type of climate-related financial risks, because that also evaluates in which point you started your sustainability strategy and how impactful it is. And then, of course, this will let investors know if there are risks investing in your organization, maybe because in the future, the implementation of new policies might affect your company because you have a lot of emissions and then you're part of the European emission trading scheme and then you need to pay a fee on top of the cap and trade system. So yeah, this assess several things, but brings the financial component on top of the sustainability and climate change related indicators.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Thank you. I see a question on the SDG. Justin Bazalgette is asking if it's true that SDGs are used mainly to advertise the area that companies are focusing on or have a bigger impact. My understanding is that the targets and ambitions were really developed for governmental strategy and impact rather than business impact. I can take that. Maybe Cesar, if you can add to it afterwards. Yeah. Yes, so actually SDGs are multi-stakeholders, so often they are regarded from the point of view that this is something that companies have to implement, that countries have to implement. While this is true and the overarching SDGs are even worded in a way that you would automatically think this is going to be a governmental initiative rather than a company one. It's better to think of it in a way that in order for SDGs to really be able to achieve them, you need everyone involved, which includes the governments, which includes civil societies, and of course it includes businesses. If you have a look at some of the sub-targets of each one of the SDG, you can actually see that some of them are a little bit more fitted to a company. Others are more fitted to the governments and to public bodies. Others are more fitted to civil organizations. So you just have to pick and choose something that really fits the purpose of your organization, your individuality that you're looking to achieve. No, Cesar, if you have something to add to that.
Yes, of course. For me, it's very important for us to understand, and also for our guests, that we are not completely detached on what's happening at country level. It's not like the operations of our organization are happening in space or in international waters. Whatever we do will affect the city where we are and the country where we are. So it's important to try to understand what is the connection there and how can we assist local authorities.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much for adding that. Yeah, maybe there's a few questions. Let me see, we have 2 minutes. Maybe one that can. So there's a question on CDP, CDSB, GRI, IRRC, and SAAB have announced a shared vision for a comprehensive corporate reporting system that includes both financial accounting and sustainability disclosure connected via integrated reporting. How will this impact the reporting landscape and the importance of following specific frameworks? Cesar, would you like to tackle that one, or would you like me?
Yes,
we can both do.
If I'm not mistaken, there was a paper that is called comprehensive reporting or comprehensive corporate reporting, if I'm not mistaken. And the idea is to gather a shared vision, common principles as a basis for all of these standards that got together, but of course, all of them with the different variations. But the idea is that the answer that will serve for one specific question in one of them would be potentially used throughout all of them, particularly. So you can just somehow copy paste, refine answers through all of these different principles and try to align them to make it easier. I was lucky to be part of one of these exercises when CDP cities merged with the Carbon Climate Registry in my previous organization. So we consolidate and harmonize two different platforms for reporting for local governments in their sustainable practices. So I'm quite familiar with this type of process. And of course, the outcome is only positive.
Yeah, and just to add on that, really the idea here is that they want to combine everything to make it complementary rather than making life more difficult for you, the people who are going to be writing these. So I agree with Cesar, the outcome should only be positive and it should make all these reportings a little bit easier. And yeah, I see that it's 5:30. So although I would love to answer all of your questions, unfortunately, I cannot. However, we will take note of all of the questions that you've put in here, and we'll try to get in touch with you in person and answer it. And if there's anything else that you feel you would like to know more about, then please do get in touch with us, and hopefully we can assist you further. But on that note, I would like to thank everyone for joining today, and for being so active in the Q&A and being active in the chat. It is really great to see so many people from around the world. And I would just like to remind everyone that we are going to be doing some sustainability reporting series on the 17th of February, which will be on communication with also Cesar and with our marketing lead, Anya. And then on the 21st is going to be a panel session with our managing partner and COO, Felix. And at the end of April, on the 28th, there will be a recap and live Q&A also with our marketing lead and with my colleague from the ESG team, Thomas. So feel free to bring in more of your questions that were maybe not answered throughout the series, and do join us there. And I do hope to see you soon. And thank you very much.
Thank you all. Take care.